Have you ever felt that sudden sinking feeling in your stomach the exact second your phone breaks the silence? It is not a soft notification chime. It is not a gentle vibration from a text message. It is a relentless, demanding ringtone that immediately shatters your peace. Instantly, your pulse spikes. A wave of irritation washes over you, followed quickly by a sharp pang of anxiety. Your mind races through a dozen scenarios, but they all end with the same frustrated thought. Why couldn't they just send a text? Be honest with yourself for a moment. How often do you watch the screen light up, staring at the name calling you, and simply wait for it to stop? You let it go to voicemail, and then, almost immediately, you feel a heavy weight of guilt settle in your chest. You feel like a bad friend. You feel like you are avoiding reality. You feel like you did something wrong, even though you haven't. But here is the raw truth that most people never understand. This intense aversion to phone calls is not a sign of rudeness. It is not social laziness.
And it is certainly not a weakness in your character. Psychology reveals that people who despise talking on the phone actually possess a very specific, rare, and deeply complex set of personality traits. If everything you are hearing so far feels uncomfortably accurate, it is because this analysis is describing the way your brain is wired. Let's break it down. First, you are a person who thinks deeply before you speak. People who hate phone calls do not lack communication skills. In fact, they often excel at them. What you struggle with is the lack of editorial control. When you text, you have a safety net. You have the luxury of time. You can type, delete, edit, and perfect your sentence until it conveys exactly what you mean. You can ensure your tone is perfect. Phone calls strip away that protection. They force you into a live performance without a script. Psychologically, this is known as high self-monitoring. It is a trait where you are hyper-aware of how you are being perceived in real time.
You aren't quiet because you have nothing to say. You are quiet because you are terrified of saying the wrong thing or sounding foolish. You care about precision. On a call, you cannot backspace a stutter. You cannot delete an awkward pause. Your brain goes into a state of high alert, not out of fear, but out of a deep desire to be clearly understood. Second, you are incredibly sensitive to other people's emotional energy. A phone call is never just an exchange of information. It is a torrent of nonverbal data. You hear the slight hesitation in their voice. You hear the change in their breathing. You hear the tone shift that suggests they are annoyed, tired, or distracted. If you are an emotionally perceptive person, your brain cannot ignore these signals. You process every single one of them. Psychologists refer to this as emotional attunement. It is a high form of emotional intelligence, but it is exhausting. While a text message is emotionally contained and safe, a phone call is a flood of raw energy. You aren't just listening to words, you are managing the other person's emotional state in real time.
That is why hanging up feels like physically putting down a heavy weight you never asked to carry. Third, you value your autonomy more than social obligation. There is an unspoken rule about phone calls that feels deeply invasive to you. A call demands your attention right now. It doesn't care what you are doing, watching, or thinking. It is an interruption that says, my desire to speak is more important than your need for focus. For people who value mental independence, this triggers a psychological defense mechanism. It links to a high need for autonomy, the drive to control your own time and mental environment. You don't mind talking, but you want to choose when it happens. You want to be prepared. When a phone rings unexpectedly, it steals that choice from you. Your brain resists the intrusion, not the person. Fourth, you tend to replay conversations long after they end. For the telephobic, the call doesn't end when you hang up. That is when the analysis begins. You sit there and replay the dialogue. Did I sound weird? Did I interrupt them? Was that silence awkward? This is called reflective thinking.
Because a phone call leaves no written record, your memory fills in the blanks, often with insecurity. Texts exist on a screen, objective and clear. Calls exist only in your anxious memory, prone to distortion and negative bias. Fifth, you aren't antisocial. You just crave depth over noise. Small talk is painful for you. The "how are you" and "what's up" filler of a phone call feels inefficient and empty. You possess introverted intuition, a trait that seeks meaning. You would happily write paragraphs about a passion or have a deep late-night chat, but the surface-level chatter of a standard phone call feels like a draining waste of mental energy. You want connection, not just contact. So what does this actually mean for you? If you stare at your ringing phone with dread, you are not broken. Your mind simply prioritizes clarity over chaos and depth over noise. You value intentionality in a world that is obsessed with instant access. That is not a flaw to be fixed. It is a strength to be protected and understood. So the next time you let a call go to voicemail, do not shame yourself.
Your brain is just protecting its peace. If this video felt like it was reading your mind, you are not alone. Subscribe for more psychology that explains the thoughts you never knew how to describe. And before you go, ask yourself this one question. Do you really hate phone calls? Or do you just value your mental space more than most people realize?